You do not hunt a fleet alone. That was the rule. It had always been the rule. Warships traveled in groups for a reason. Convoys existed because the ocean is vast, unpredictable, and merciless, but numbers meant survival. Destroyers screened the perimeter. Aircraft patrolled overhead. Escorts hunted anything that moved beneath the surface. And submarines? Submarines were the hunters of opportunity. They struck stragglers. Isolated cargo ships. Vulnerable targets. They did not charge directly into a protected formation and expect to survive. For the Imperial Japanese Navy, this belief wasn't just doctrine, it was certainty. Their shipping lanes stretched across the Pacific, feeding an empire at war. Oil, ammunition, troops, food. Everything moved by sea. And everything depended on the idea that no single enemy submarine could break through, strike repeatedly, and escape. Because if that were possible, the entire system would collapse. But in October 1944, one man decided that rule no longer applied. And in less than 24 hours, the ocean would prove him right. You are 33 years old. You've spent years beneath the surface of the Pacific, learning a kind of warfare most men will never understand. Silent. Suffocating. Calculated. Your name is Richard H. O'Kane. You are not reckless. But you are aggressive in a way that borders on dangerous. You believe hesitation kills more surely than enemy fire. And by 1944, the war has reached a turning point. The United States Navy has begun to choke Japan's supply lines. Submarines like the USS Tang are no longer just raiders. They are executioners. Japanese shipping is collapsing under relentless pressure. Tankers burn. Cargo ships vanish. Entire convoys disappear between islands. And yet, the Japanese command still clings to the belief that organized convoys can survive. Because what's the alternative? Admitting that the ocean itself has turned against them. USS Tang is already one of the most successful submarines in the Pacific. Under O'Kane's command, it has destroyed ship after ship with surgical precision. But this patrol, this one will be different. This time you're not waiting. You're hunting. And somewhere ahead in the dark, is a convoy that doesn't yet know it's already dead. Night. The surface of the Pacific is black glass. No moon. No horizon. Just darkness. You are on the bridge. Engines low. Crew silent. Then contact. A silhouette. Then another. Multiple ships. A convoy. You lower the periscope slightly. Adjust. Range 3,000 yards. You count them. Cargo ships. Escorts. Movement and formation. This is not a target. This is a risk. And you move closer. 2,500 yards. The destroyers sweep wide arcs, searching. Listening. Hunting for exactly what you are. But you don't turn away. You angle in. 2,000 yards. Standby tubes. Inside the submarine the air is thick. Sweat mixes with oil and steel. Every man knows what this means. This isn't a hit and run. This is a full attack. 1,500 yards. You choose your target. A large cargo vessel heavily loaded. Fire 1. The torpedo launches. A violent shudder runs through the hull. Fire 2. Second stretch. Then, impact. A deep, concussive explosion tears through the night. The ship breaks open. Fire blooms across the water. But you don't stop. You turn immediately. New angle. New target. The convoy erupts into chaos. Searchlights sweep. Guns fire blindly into darkness. Destroyers accelerate, trying to locate the attacker. But you're already repositioning. Reload. Minutes feel like hours. Then, another solution. Fire. Another torpedo. Another hit. Another ship dying in the water. Now the escorts are closing. You can feel it. Propellers. Fast. Aggressive. They know you're here. Depth charges begin to fall. The first explosion slams into the hull. The submarine shudders violently. Lights flicker. Men grip anything they can. Another blast. Closer. The sound is unbearable. A deep, crushing thunder that seems to squeeze the air from your lungs. But you hold position. You wait. You listen. The destroyers pass overhead. And then, you rise again. Back to periscope depth. The convoy is shattered. Ships burning. Formation broken. But there are still targets. You attack again. And again. Each time you move faster. Strike harder. At one point, you close to under 1,000 yards, point-blank range for a submarine. You fire. Direct hit. The ship erupts. Steel twists. Men scream. Oil ignites on the water. The ocean itself is on fire. And still you continue. Hours pass. Reposition. Attack again. By the time the night ends, the convoy is no longer a convoy. It is wreckage. Burning hulls. Survivors in the water. Silence where there was once order. And you are still alive. If you find this kind of untold story as fascinating as we do, we'd be honored if you'd hit that subscribe button. We believe these stories of courage, sacrifice, and tactical brilliance deserve to be told. And by subscribing, you help us ensure they aren't forgotten. Morning comes. But the hunt isn't over. Another contact. Another opportunity. And within 24 hours the number becomes impossible to ignore. Ship after ship destroyed. A single submarine. An entire fleet brought to its knees. What happened in those 24 hours didn't just sink ships. It shattered belief. For the Imperial Japanese Navy, the realization was terrifying. If one submarine could penetrate a convoy, attack repeatedly, and escape, then no route was safe. No formation was strong enough. No amount of escorts could guarantee survival. Shipping losses skyrocketed. Fuel shortages worsened. Entire operations began to falter, not because of direct battle but because supplies simply never arrived. What they didn't know was that this wasn't an isolated event. American submarines were doing this everywhere. The Pacific was no longer a battlefield. It was a graveyard. And USS Tang, under O'Kane, had just shown how deadly one determined crew could be. Richard O'Kane would go on to become one of the most decorated submarine commanders of the war. But his story did not end in victory. On a later patrol, USS Tang would be lost, struck by its own malfunctioning torpedo in a tragic accident. Of the entire crew, only a handful survived. Think about that. Men who had faced destroyers, depth charges and entire convoys, lost to a single mechanical failure. War does not reward logic. It takes. And it takes without warning. But what remains, is what they did. The ships they sank. The lives they risked. The moment they proved that one submarine could do the impossible. Today most people will never hear their names. They will never know what happened beneath the surface of the Pacific in October 1944. But you do. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm this piece of history is worth remembering. We're dedicated to rescuing these forgotten stories from the archives. If you want to join us on this mission, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or country and tell us if someone in your family served. And finally, thank you for ensuring that Richard O'Kane and the men of USS Tang do not disappear into silence. They deserve to be remembered.